How's it going? I'm Andrew Aiken. I'm President and CEO here at the Palm Beach Zoo and Conservation Society. The mission of the Palm Beach Zoo and Conservation Society is very simple. We exist to inspire people, that's all of us included, to actually do things on behalf of wildlife and the natural world. The zoo was founded initially as a place to just connect people with wildlife. This was back in the 60s. When the city parks director for the city of West Palm Beach, a guy by the name of Paul Dreher, convinced the city that they should purchase the 100-acre Dreher Park from the state of Florida, which the city did. And with Mr. Dreher's help, they planted a lot of trees thanks to the Fairchild Botanical Gardens located down in Miami, and they also began a petting zoo in the 60s. So that was the first thing that was really initiated just to bring people out and connect people with animals. That time it wasn't wildlife, domesticated animals or farm animals, that's different from wildlife. Today it's much, much different. And we have different reasons for existing today, a different purpose, a different mission. And really today it's all about the fact that the human footprint is expanded so dramatically all over the planet. Just in my own lifetime, the people population on the planet has gone from 3.5 billion people to over 7 billion people. That means more habitat for people. That means more need for energy, more need for water. We generate more trash than we've ever generated before, and everyone knows we're burning a lot more fuel and causing a lot more emission of that crazy molecule, the carbon molecule. So as our footprint has expanded, that has essentially taken away wildlife habitat all over the planet. And that's what animals need. If animals are going to survive and species are going to survive, they have to have space to survive, just like we do. We need cities, we need country, we need rural places, we need places to grow food. But if our population is expanding, we take more and more of that open space, there's less and less for species. So our mission now is really to help make people aware of that simple dynamic, and then also to impart some understanding of what they can do, what we can all do in our everyday lives that really helps wildlife in a very big way. Well, the reason it's important to get people to care about wildlife and the natural world, first of all, life is kind of boring if you don't know anything about anything other than people. There are a lot of amazing species that do amazing things all over the planet. But the simple question, is, should the planet just be people? Should it just be us? Should, through our expansion and gobbling up of resources, should that just allow for the extinction of every other species on the planet? I think most people would say, that doesn't really sound fair, that we ought to try to live in balance, in some sort of sustainable relationship with wildlife and nature and the natural world. Well, education, of course, is critical, because our whole purpose for being here, as I said, was to inspire people to act, to do things. And they need to know why they should do that. What's the point of doing things to help wildlife? What is the point, for instance, when you go to the grocery store and knowing the difference between a product that's made from the Rainforest Alliance, or something that's grown locally and provided in your grocery store, or something that's organic provided in your grocery store? What does that mean for wildlife? Or when we purchase paper at Office Depot for our printers, what kind of paper should we buy, and who are the makers of that paper? How'd they harvest it? And what sorts of companies are doing things that's sensitive to wildlife and wildlife habitat? We like coffee in the morning. Well, did we buy coffee that was made by growers who grow the coffee in the shade? So the tree canopy through the Amazon rainforest will continue to grow and exist instead of being clear-cutted. So all of those things, the more that we can tell people about, if you buy these products or you do these things in your everyday life, really helps wildlife. Not everybody, it's not going to be a few people who do everything to solve these problems. It's really all of us doing lots of little things in our everyday life that we think solves the problem. And that's the reason why the zoo is so important. We have 300,000+ people a year who come to the zoo, who visit our animals. Many will think they're just going to see the animals. What you hope to achieve through that visit is that they'll realize not only is a Malayan tiger very cool, for instance, or a jaguar is a nifty thing, but geez, I didn't realize that there are only 200 or 300 Malayan tigers left on the planet. And gosh, 100 years ago, there were 100,000 of them. And not 100,000 tigers of all tiger species. Now that species is down to only about 3,000, of which the Malayan tiger is 200 or 300 in the wild. So that population has declined dramatically. And the question is, well, okay, there's nothing I can do to help solve that problem. And the truth is the exact opposite. There are things that we can do. So, and it doesn't mean you just have to write a big check and give to conservation. But when you go to the grocery store, if you know something about the difference between regular palm oil that goes into all kinds of products that we buy, hair conditioner, shampoo, soap, even ice cream. If we know the difference between regular palm oil and palm oil that's harvested through the Round Table for Sustainable Palm Oil, which is growers who say, you know, our acreage should always be separated to some degree so that there can be corridors for wildlife to connect to conservation parks. Well, if you look for the RSPO label, you know, for instance, that Ben & Jerry's ice cream incorporates RSPO palm oil in it, and other ice creams might not. If you know that, that's all the more reason to buy a product that's made by a company that cares about wildlife. So when you go and buy things at the store, you are helping wildlife if you're just aware that the companies are actually doing things in their in their industrial process that is sensitive and sustainably designed for wildlife. So that's really the whole idea of education. It doesn't mean that you go to the zoo and you sit down in a classroom and have to take a test. No, it's just come to the zoo and talk to people, engage with our education staff, engage with our keeper staff. They're all here looking for opportunities in an informal basis to talk to people, or formalized through keeper talks. We have 3,500 scheduled keeper talks a year. Whenever everyone who comes to the zoo gets a map, on the back of that map are the whole schedule of events every day. And all those events are designed to connect people to wildlife, then to impart some understanding about what's going on with the wildlife habitat, and then at the end to always say, and here's what you can do. Simple little things you can do that really will help species survive all over the planet. That's education. That's why education is so important to our conservation mission. So we're hoping that just by coming and experiencing the zoo, that we will be contributing to conservation. That means we are building little incremental conservation-oriented people with every visit to the zoo. Let me just give you some facts. Of the 300,000+ people that come to the zoo every year, about half are attending our keeper talks. We'd like that number to be more. Our goal is to raise that number, get it up to 70 or 80%. But of those half, the 50% of the people who come to the zoo, about half of that group that goes to the keeper talk, when they walk out of our gate, we survey them, we ask them, we have a conversation, ask them how their day was, what did they enjoy, and little by little we want to get to it to find out whether or not they attended one of those talks and whether they could remember something that they found interesting, something that they could take away from it, and some small action initiative that they might be considering incorporating into their everyday life. And our surveys are telling us that somewhere between 70 and 80,000 people a year are leaving our zoo having learned something they didn't know, and they're thinking about, hey, I could do that. I could incorporate that simple thing into my everyday life. So that's roughly a quarter of the people who come to the zoo, 80,000 people a year doing some act of conservation caring, if you will. So that's just one thing that we do. Other things we do, we support projects that are actually out in the field. We have projects in Malaysia, we have projects in Central and South America, projects that are run by conservation companies. We are expert in zoo operations, but we take resources and support projects out in the field that again are all about preserving open space, studying species who are threatened with extinction, and monitoring what's happening out there. And we try to support projects that are also related to the animals that we have here on exhibit. So the more curious people are about our animals, we can say, gosh, and in Madidi in Bolivia, for instance, this is going on with jaguars, or in the Amazon basin, or in Malaysia, in Endau Rampen, this many newborn Malayan tigers were just born in the last year, and here they are. And this many were actually shot by poachers or somehow had their habitat taken. So we support projects, actual projects in the field that people can learn from, and then we also send our own keepers out to those projects to visit them so that they bring real, authentic stories back from the field to share with the 300,000 people who come to the zoo, because not everyone who comes to the zoo can necessarily travel all over the world and see wildlife in actual natural habitat spaces. So there's a couple of ideas. outside of that, we really try as an institution to sort of walk the walk of conservation. Really important. Just an example, we recently broke our zoo up into, we have almost 100 employees. So we broke down into 10 teams, and the goal of our fossil fuel carbon reduction initiative was to burn less gasoline from all the staff who come and go to work every day. So we set up teams and we have individual competitions. It's fun, it's friendly. We have team mascots, we have team songs, but the goal of each team is to burn less fuel and emit less carbon. And that doesn't mean, some sort of draconian experience where everyone is going to have to turn their life upside down to save fossil fuel, but we think maybe we could just do some simple, painless thing. Like we all said, let's pledge one day a month that we will either carpool, we'll ride our bike to work, we'll take public transportation, or we'll walk, people power. And if we do that, gosh, that seems pretty simple. We'll cut our carbon emissions by probably 5%. We did that painlessly in the first month. In the second month of the program, we hope we can double that, make it to 10%. Maybe we get to 20 or 30% eventually. We build it takes a real system. You need carpool vans, you need shower facilities and bike lockers and all those things. It takes a lot of money, but we think you always got to get started by saying, hey, what could I do? How can I chip in? So it's not just that we support projects in the field or that we ask people who come to the zoo if they could get involved in things. We do it ourselves. We say you got to set a good example, whether it's how you use water, whether it's your trash footprint, whether it's how much energy you use as a zoo, how much of that energy that you consume is renewable energy, and then how much fossil fuels do you burn and how much do you save. When you save it, every time you do that, you're releasing less carbon, that little molecule that holds so much heat and is essentially causing our climate to change, our sea levels to rise. We want to emit less of that into the atmosphere. Important for us as zoo staff to be conservation oriented and to show the way ourselves, set a good example. We hope by doing that and by talking about how simple it is that people will be inspired to say, gosh, that's not a big deal, and it is an urgent problem. Maybe I should get involved and do the same sort of thing or more. So that's conservation. It's all sorts of different things. It's really a way of life and a way of thinking about the planet, about our society. We always recommend the best way to get in touch with us is ride your bike or get on the bus or carpool on down to the zoo and come and see us, right? Get involved. It can just be fun, just an entertaining experience, but there's an awful lot more that we offer as well that is uplifting, inspiring to a lot of people, and best ways to come here. Otherwise, check us out on the website, and eventually you'll come for a visit.
We are going to think about it in 10 years when there is no more sharks in the water. So it's now we have to act.